Hello, everybody. I'm Pedro.
And I'm Meredith.
And this is Gritty Reboot, the grittiest damn show there's ever been about reboots or movies.
Yeehaw.
That's, yeah, yeehaw! You have to do it with some intensity and some passion.
I did.
That's debatable. Today, we are not talking about reboots in any way, shape, or form. It is the end of the year, well, the beginning of a new year, pardon me, and we are wrapping up 2023. We're doing worst of here as we step into February. And next week, we're doing the best of. But today, we are focusing on the absolute dregs of the year, the films we really hated. And I want to stress, we didn't get to everything because that's the toughest thing about watching crappy movies is, at the end of the day, you're just watching crappy movies.
Yeah.
And in an era of...
so much you can watch.
And I know people complain about the aggregate sites like Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic and stuff like that, how they bring down the movie-going experience by homogenizing all these reviews into just a percentage number. And not you actually reading the opinion on the film, what it means, and how someone feels about it in some way, shape, or form. But it also helps us steer away from shit films. Like, you can take a look at a movie and be like, 15%, no, it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
But instead, we dive headfirst.
Yep.
And that's where we were this week. And so because of that, at the end of the year, we sort of make a bit of a better effort to try to seek out some of the worst films of the year and truly torture ourselves. And it was a rough end to the year. It was a rough January because of that, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
A few of the movies we had stumbled upon, my number one is one that we actually went to the theater to see. So, I don't know. I think it's just a really difficult thing to really subject yourself to, like, intentionally shit movies. Especially, there's one on your list that I thought was, like, I found some things to enjoy in it, but it wasn't a great way to spend an evening.
Mm-mm.
You know, there's things that, like, well, I didn't hate that movie, but man, I'd probably never watch that movie again.
Yeah.
You know, unless we did a career retrospective on Willem Dafoe, spoiler, I don't think I'd ever get to that movie again.
There's only one movie on my list that I might watch again, but that's just because I respect the director very much.
Yeah. All right.
This evil is something different.
And number 10, and
Number 10.
cut that, cut, that's forgotten. And number 5, a movie so bad, I forgot how to fucking count. Pet Sematary Bloodlines. So the Pet Sematary franchise is not much of one, right?
Right.
Like, there is Stephen King's acclaimed book, and there's the original adaptation, which I enjoy, and I know many others find quite cheesy. But I've always found it to have been creepy, and I still enjoy it as an adaptation, even though it isn't perfect in that respect.
Yeah.
There is a sequel with Edward Furlong that I think is a bad movie that I enjoy. It's a truly lousy movie that for some reason just makes me smile. I guess it's pure nostalgia and also a really handy performance by Clancy Brown, who understands the kind of movie he's in. And then there's the reboot that I don't particularly care for. It's not an awful film by any means. It's just sort of there.
Yeah.
Like another sort of limp adaptation. Barely an improvement on the 85 film, if not a slight downgrade. And then I hear that they're going to take another stab at it. And I assume they're going to do another reboot of King's Property, but instead they're going to do an original story. And that's what we get with Pet Sematary Bloodlines. And this is directed by Lindsay Anderson Beer, heard of somebody in particular, and starring a lot of people you haven't heard of, with the exception of like Henry Thomas and maybe Natalie Island Lind and Pam Grier. That was nice to see her show, by the way.
Yeah.
But this is just, there's a lot of missed opportunity here. There really is. And they do a decent job adapting to like what the sort of spirits were like, the guys when they came back in the book. Like they sort of knew your deepest, darkest fears and would attack you with that, as opposed to how they showed in the original movie. And I don't think they covered in the reboot.
Mm-mm.
You know, in the second movie, they're just sort of marauding ghouls, right? They're
Yeah.
not, I mean, not necessarily ghouls, but they're just sort of act weird and they just are generally evil, but more mischievous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know people's secrets. I think that was like the creepiest part. This movie has that, but just wastes all that potential
Yeah.
by just a very lame story. Even though there is some stylish directing here and there, Henry Thomas, I think, is an actor I always enjoy. He just kind of shows up to sort of like, I mean, there's this plot line about people set up to protect the town from the pet cemetery.
Yeah, like this is knowledge.
Yeah, and I was like, well, why not set up a better barrier, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, or why not have it be, like, we've seen movies before where there's like an open secret in the town, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's how we just watched American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
That village has an open secret, right?
Yeah,
That
there's a pentagram on the
Yeah,
wall.
exactly. I just don't know why you can't sort of have that kind of agreement, especially if it's something that sort of deadly, right? Like just going up and burying a person stricken with grief, burying someone in the pet cemetery seems like an issue you might actually run into in half, right?
A lot.
Yeah, and it's just one of the things in the movie that sort of made me chuckle. And like that's the thing. I kept thinking of like odd ideas about what life would be like around that thing because this movie was so uninteresting and in the angles that it took that I was trying to create something of better substance to do with King's original work than what this movie is.
Well, there's all this whole talk about like this deadfall that's, they show it and it's supposed to stop people from going back there and causing mischief. But yet the people in this movie get through that deadfall
without a problem.
No.
Yeah, like it's not a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no logic to that. There's no logic to the movie.
No, there really isn't. It feels like a lazily told video game story.
Yeah.
Like that's what I thought. We're just kind of wandering from cutscene to cutscene. Like, oh, this character dies now. Now there's gameplay of you fighting this guy.
It's just such a shame because it's fruitful as far as, getting some good content out of that.
Yeah, and I think the actual book can still be adapted quite well, and I think it's still a story for this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah. We saw a shitty reboot about it, but...
Yeah, you like that reboot a lot less than I did.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to move on to your number 5, not 10.
You're not here.
We're not there. The car exploded. Come get the girls. I have to stay here with Woodrow.
I'm not the chauffeur. I'm the grandfather. Where are you?
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City, you heard it there. Wes Anderson's latest film. Meredith, why do you hate Wes Anderson?
I love Wes Anderson. He is one of my favorite directors. But man, when he misses, he really fucking misses. And this happens to be one of his movies that I think is a huge miss. Mm-hmm. Life Aquatic is another one that I hate. I
like Life Aquatic, I do.
I haven't seen it in years, so I should go back and revisit it because he deserves that.
Sure. I think this might be a film you could go back and revisit and appreciate maybe in years later. I was not enamored with the film, but I would not say it isn't the worst. It's certainly not going to make my best. I don't think it's his strongest film, but you really took a disliking to it. Where I was kind of vibing with it a little bit, and that's about the highest compliment that I can give it. I was picking up what it was laying down. That's about it. I didn't think there was a lot of substance in this.
I think it was like somebody doing a Wes Anderson impression. But it was Wes Anderson himself doing an impression of himself.
That is true. That is true. I think he was aiming for like something that could be like his signature piece or something like that, and just sort of not quite hitting that mark.
No.
It reminded me a bit of the Darjeeling Limited, which is another film from him that I almost like. But it just doesn't.
I like that more than this.
Yeah, it doesn't really come together for me. It's just not one of his classics. But I think you're a little harsh on it. A little harsh. I think there's some good performances. ScarJo, Schwartzman, Sophia Lillis is in a small role. I just like seeing Sophia.
Yeah, but they're just all doing the same bit.
Yeah.
So it's just boring.
Yeah, lesser Wes Anderson, I think, is sort of the takeaway here. But I think this is going to be a hidden gem maybe in his career in like 5 or 10 years.
Maybe
people look back on.
I'll watch it again years down the road. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
That's my 5.
Number 5. All right. Now, number 4, the year not necessarily movies. This is something I really wanted to cover.
Fury. Since you've been gone, things have gotten much worse. Why do you think I came back? That's
right. I'm going with Marvel's Secret Invasion for my number 4 pick because I want to talk about the cratering of the MCU Disney Plus version.
Yeah.
Because that's what this was. That was the death nail for what they were doing there. And it was a good death nail because it needed to happen. And I feel bad it happened to Nick Fury in the show, but this was the low point of maybe just the Marvel franchise in general.
Yeah, it was really terrible.
Yeah, and people generally despised it. I think the user reviews on are like 20 or 18%. Very, very low.
Yeah, it's that bad.
Yeah, it's a really bad, and the finale, just when it could have helped it just killed it.
Yeah.
It just murdered it. And it just ended up becoming this giant mess. We have a very tired Nick Fury. They're doing the old man storyline again. And, it's just, he's an old, out of date character and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't matter in this universe anymore. I just don't know why they really went with this sort of narrative where they're sort of ragging on him a little bit, and it's about him not being able to find a home for the scroll.
Yeah.
And then, like, I understand the scroll could be upset, like, as I get into character motivations, and I'm just like, I mean, aren't you aliens? Can't you go out and help him find them? He's trying to keep other things safe. He's got other jobs to do. Then how this thing comes to a conclusion with, like, Amelia Clark getting, like, all the powers in the MCU, and, like, her becoming literally the most powerful character in the universe, right?
Yeah.
And we know we are never going to see her again.
Nope.
That is never, ever going to come back up in any way, shape, or form.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's also an awful effect. I remember people memeing her with the Drax arm, and then it's just such a lazy effort. And it shows exactly what the problem was. They had done such a great job giving people just the right amount of movies and stuff before they were oversaturated. And there was this massive rush, the streaming war rush. Everybody was trying to get the gold that Netflix had found, and they committed their best two properties to Disney Plus in such a gigantic way. They diluted both properties. Mm-hmm. Now, thankfully, Star Wars has gotten a better adaptations. I think as a better end of that stick, because I really don't think really any of the Marvel Plus shows, with maybe the exception of early and with WandaVision and some elements of Miss Marvel as well, none of those shows have really hit or really punctuated like that sort of cultural zeitgeist, Yeah. They've just been things to watch. A weird albatross around your neck. If you're a fan, don't forget to watch, Miss Marvel this week. Don't forget there's other things so you don't get behind.
Which is us.
Yeah, because we've seen all the properties we're behind now because we haven't seen the Marvels. As a lot of people haven't. Didn't make the list. I want another movie instead. It's just one of those things to where, like, this is like the absolute moment where all that came and hit them in the face.
Yeah.
It was just, everything was stretched so thin, from an AI intro to just the writing on this show, the characterizations that are done here. It's just content for the sake of content. And it cheapened the brand. And listen, now there's legitimate superhero fatigue. Yeah. And that's legit. Like, there's no way to get around it. And that's not all their fault. Some of that is Morbius and Sony doing whatever the hell they're doing over there. We have Madam Web coming up in a few weeks that nobody's going to care about. These movies come out over and over again. And listen, Marvel has done their work too in getting to this level of fatigue. But, it's not entirely on them. But things like this really don't help at all. And like I said, this is just an absolute low point.
So you chose a TV show for their worst movies of the year.
Well, it's our worst of the year. Last year we did Obi-Wan as well, if you recall. we did Obi-Wan, so.
No, it deserves it.
Well, it's just one of the things I wanted to point out in entertainment. The Disney, I thought, made a massive misstep. And of course they had a lot to deal with as well. They had Mickey Mouse dip into the public domain, and the public domain is what gives us our next movie.
Yeah.
Let's hit it.
You're the first person I ever shown this place to.
And why am I so special?
Because soon we'll be Christopher and Mary Robin. You should be close now.
We're not going to find them.
So,
Pooh, Piglet,
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey at your number 4 pick. This is...
What can you say?
Oddly enough, this is... Okay, so here's the issue.
Why?
This is like a joyless affair.
Yeah.
This is like a joyless affair when I thought I would get something tongue very in the cheek.
Yeah.
Maybe have some fun with it. This movie doesn't really have a lot of fun. It has a couple of decent kills in it, but it's a pretty substandard and just cheap slasher movie in 2020.
It's so serious.
Yeah, and I think the tone really takes away from it. Because it's not really telling like a serious story,
No.
It's just a standard slasher story.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The writers and the director have to be like, okay, this is stupid. We need to lighten this up a little bit. I haven't seen Five Nights at Freddy's, but I imagine it was a little bit better than this.
I didn't hate Five Nights at Freddy's.
Which one, in your opinion, was better?
Five Nights at Freddy's is a significantly better film.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, Five Nights at Freddy's is underwhelming. This is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
This barely ended up not making the list. I wanted to highlight Pet Sematary instead, is sort of like how I looked at it, as we sort of have a conjoined bottom 10 list, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I look at this one right here. It's just, garbage for the sake of garbage.
Yeah. I've always liked the Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and all them. In fact, my stuffed animal as a kid was named Pooh Bear.
Pooh Bear, even though was it actually Pooh Bear?
No, it was
It was a knockoff bear.
it was this thing called a Bertle bear.
Oh, that's right. You've mentioned this. Yeah. I always thought you said Bertle Bear, but it's La Bertle, right? Or
No, it's Bertle bear.
Bertle Bear?
Bertle
Okay.
bear.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very weird, like, cross between a turtle and a bear. And there was a TV show, and I believe it didn't do very well because you don't know anything about it.
Well, clearly not.
Apparently, I'm the only one that watched it.
Apparently so. I'm not trying to hate or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I never heard this shite.
Yeah.
So as we move from this sort of independent movie trash, I want to highlight a real Hollywood misfire for my number 3.
My name is Mills. I was the pilot of the ship. We've crash landed on an uncharted planet. There's something up.
This is Adam Driver in 65. This is a movie where he, as a space traveler, travels to an older Earth and battles dinosaurs, which on paper sounds fascinating, right?
Sounds awesome.
Sounds like it could be a very fun movie. A perfect way to spend a Saturday evening. We were on vacation with a friend, and I saw this movie had popped up on Netflix, and we didn't have anywhere to go that night. So I said, hey, let's all have a few brews and just sit down and we'll watch this movie. I said, it could be fun. I said, I pitched it to a guy who doesn't really normally like sci-fi, but hey, a time traveler with dinosaurs and lasers, hey, that might be all right.
Yeah.
And first of all, you can't tell me, if I put a gun to your head, you couldn't tell me a single plot point from this movie.
Nope.
Yeah, because I was like telling you earlier, 65, and you're like, what? I was like, the Adam Driver movie with the dinosaurs. What? With the little girl that can't talk. You're like, what? I could have said anything. And then the dinosaur shows up in a tutu and dances around. You're like, oh, that movie. But it just, you instantly forgot about it once it occurred. It put our friends to sleep. Like, literally, they were out cold by like the middle of the second act.
Yeah.
Nothing happens over the course of this runtime. There's finally, at the end of the movie, a dinosaur battle that is just a dinosaur fight. There's nothing particularly interesting, or it's not built up to necessarily anything. It's just something that happens, and then they get out, they escape. And that's the fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's just, it might be the most inconsequential film of all time, and certainly the most inconsequential film of 2023.
Unremarkable is my rating.
Yeah. I just, like I said, I couldn't give this movie a lower recommendation, really, because it's just a waste of time. There's thousands of better films you could watch.
And I love Adam Driver.
Yeah, like even if you're an Adam Driver fan, I can't find anything really redeeming in this movie at all. And I think other than highlighting it for a few end of the year worst lists, I don't believe it'll ever be remembered for anything at all. That's it. I don't even think it'll have camp value. Just forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And now we absolutely, this is your number 3 and my number 2.
The patient has lost the ability to speak. He's not deaf, and he's technically not mute. With the proper amount of care, it's possible that he could regain his understanding of the world, his ability to speak.
What's our first course of action?
Well, the state is not going to pay for any of that, so we are going to put his ass on the first bus downtown.
So I want to say I really love Charlie Day.
I know.
Yeah, I think you feel the same way.
I do too.
This was
so cute.
A pretty massive disappointment.
This guy.
Yeah.
You highlight another comedy on your list, but I think this was a far worse film than that. This was one of the worst comedies I've ever seen. And I saw an interview Charlie Day sort of did about where he talked about this movie, and I sympathized with him so much because I could see the disappointment, like because he talked about some things didn't work out like I thought. And that's an understatement.
Yeah.
This is just so.
That's the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah, pretty much. The entire gag of the film is that Charlie Day plays a man who cannot speak and has the education level of a toddler.
Yeah, he's not very smart.
And he is a dead ringer for like the biggest star in Hollywood. And this gets him a career out in Hollywood. And he just stumbles back and forth like Forrest Gump style into like events in Hollywood to rise him to the top and then take him straight to the bottom.
It reminds me of like scenes from like an old silent movie.
Yeah, and that's sort of the vibe that it's going for, like an old silent film comedy.
But not in a good way.
Yeah, it's not like The Artist or anything like that. It doesn't reference that era, I think, in a proper way. It just is like, hey, this is something I like.
Yeah.
More than it embodies it. It's just a reference. And I think that's the general problem with the movie, is I don't think Charlie Day had a real handle on what he wanted to portray about that era of filmmaking. And whatever it was, he certainly didn't bring it into 2023. I mean, this thing just limps around. And I think it has, I mean, it's full of cameos. So this thing sort of feels like it was kind of a lark. Like he thought, like, I'll make it a fun production and the fun will kind of come through, and just doesn't at all.
Mm-mm.
Like this is a 0 for me. Like I really thought about putting this at number 1. But for show formatting, I thought it felt best if we talked about it at the same time, because I wanted it on my list no matter what. That's how much I disliked this.
Yeah, I disliked it a lot. Too.
And I did want to mention I'm a big Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, and I like Charlie Day quite a bit. I'm usually enamored with his work, and this just is a miss, and that's okay.
Do you think he should stop directing?
No, he shouldn't stop directing. Just because you missed doesn't. If he can, he should try it again. You know, there's a story I like, and one day we'll talk about it. But it's about Cabin Boy. You remember Cabin Boy, right?
Yeah, with
Chris Elliott.
Yeah,
it's a 90s movie. So Cabin Boy was built to be a Tim Burton film. Tim Burton read the script, loved it, and was going through the production. They'd gotten in the very early stages of it. The movie was beginning pre-production. It was going to happen. And Tim Burton, I think, moves on to do like Batman or a different, maybe not Batman, but he goes on to do basically a different movie and drops out. But the movie has to be made. So it gets laid at the hands of like the guys who wrote it to like direct the movie. And so they get the chance to do it. And it's a disaster, right?
Yeah.
It's an absolute failure. And it killed their careers. Like Chris Elliott never ever made a movie again, right?
That's not a good movie.
Yeah. And listen, it has a cult following. I happen to enjoy the movie, and we'll talk about it one day. But it's something I always mention, like, he just assumed like, okay, well, I'll do this and this will be a stepping stone. Like, no, the movie became such a joke. He could never, ever work again. Like the way they talk about it with such pain, you know, it's something that always has struck with me. So I think that could be like this kind of failure for Charlie Day, where he doesn't go and direct another movie again. He just sticks to television.
Yeah. I mean, which is fine.
Which would be unfortunate, because, you know, it's just a misfire. You know, I think to make a movie this bad, there has to be some real talent there. That's the way I feel about it. To make a film like this, there has to be some level of talent there to put all these things together in a way that just does not work. Like, like it takes the talent for that. So some things just got misaligned, and sometimes that's all it takes for a comedy to just whiff. And that's all it is. It's just a complete series of whiffs over and over again. Just comedy gags just don't hit over and over.
His vision just wasn't there.
And now with number 2.
I fear you, brother. I gotta set you free.
Help me! Get me out of here!
Okay, so I'm gonna straight up say I didn't hate this movie.
I did.
I didn't hate it. I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it.
A man's shit pile. They emphasized it.
They did show the shit pile. They did show the.
They emphasized it.
They emphasized it.
Somebody made that.
Somebody made it. Someone shat that out.
Rip got some clay.
That was our department
or something.
Somebody in our department's like, we need a pile of shit, and he's like, it's like, show me the script. We'll start there.
Yeah.
Hey-o! But no, honestly, I don't. I think Dafoe is a strong enough actor to carry this, but it's not a particularly engaging piece of entertainment.
I love Willem Dafoe. He can't do wrong. But this movie is just not. It's just a movie about a guy that gets trapped in a house. That's it. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to it. It's what you would do to survive, like being trapped in a fancy house, and it have like the thermostat go really, really cold and really, really hot, which is ridiculous. And because why would the little screen be in charge of all that, right?
Well, the thermostat's what's in charge. The screen's just the interface.
Yeah, but it's broken. The screen's just broken.
Well, yeah, he can't interact with it in any way. It's just showing him what's happening. It's so we can understand. We can't see heat, Meredith. We can't see cold.
Well, I know that.
We don't want to go, brr, must be 40 degrees in here. We don't, so we have to have some visual aid.
We would have a visual aid, him taking all his clothes off and him putting clothes on.
Yeah, but wouldn't you agree?
That's the visual aid you would get, fucker.
Well, would you agree, though, the screen's just a good shorthand to let us know that. I don't, of all the nitpicks with the movie, I don't have a problem with a thermostat screen.
Well, I'm just saying, there's a lot to this movie that's bad.
I found it enough in his performance to say it's certainly not. It wouldn't approach my worst of the list at all. but it's like I said, I probably never watch it again.
Yeah, no,
I probably never watch it
definitely
again.
not.
Unless we do like a Willem Dafoe career retrospective. I couldn't imagine taking a deep dive into this film again.
Yeah.
That's just like, it's just how I feel about it.
There's nothing, it's skin deep.
Yeah.
It's skin deep.
Mhm.
There's nothing to this movie.
There's not a thing to it.
Nothing.
It's naked.
Willem Dafoe is the only thing to this movie.
Yeah, well, obviously he has to be, you know. And I just want to mention, to your point, there really isn't an interesting twist or anything like that at all. I mean, not that like a ghost had to come out or anything
Like he
that.
escapes. Big deal.
Yeah, possibly. It's just hinted at.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if it was a more engaging story, then perhaps. But it just particularly wasn't. All right, so now on to our honorable mentions. So I'm going to go up first, and I went back and forth with this one, and I almost went with Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, but instead I went with this Mission Impossible knockoff.
You know what you signed up for. No friends. No relationships. What we do is too important. When governments fail, the only thing left is the charter.
The most highly trained agents.
It's a bigger operation.
No political leanings.
Gal Gadot in Heart of Stone
Yeah.
is an absolute misfire. And everything that's wrong with how the streaming service is approaching these big budget movies. Because they're just like, let's make big budget movies. Like, you might want to make them good.
Yeah.
Because without the benefit of saturation, marketing, and booking, the old school method to make movies open big at the box office for a big boom on that opening weekend, where the hell are you making that profit? Because who the hell is saying like, oh man, I got to get that Netflix subscription for Heart of Stone?
Yeah, and Netflix tends to do this a lot. They tend to make these subpar movies.
Because last year we highlighted The Gray Man.
Out,
yeah, we highlighted The Gray Man, which was just there. I mean, there was a few nice moments in it, but I mean, it was a very, very expensive miss.
Mm-hmm.
Very expensive. It looked great, but just, I mean, it was an inch deep at that. And this is worse.
Yeah, and I want to like Gal Gadot. I really do. I think she's a lovely person, but the bad thing is she's just not a very good actress.
No. I
can't carry a big budget action movie.
Yeah, I do mention this. She's sort of a draw who's a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, you know, someone with an accent who's always the person that they are, but an action star.
Yeah, she could do more with.
But she doesn't quite have the charisma that I think Arnold did in his heyday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really hurts her. She's had some really lousy work, and this doesn't help with that perception at all.
Yeah, she looked the part as Wonder Woman. I mean, for God's sakes, but...
And I think she could definitely do a pretty good spy movie. Well, there are a few competent action sequences in this film. You know, at the price tag that this movie is, like, what was it, $250 million? Is that what it was?
I don't know.
You know, with the kind of price tag that this has, you would expect that there would truly be something to knock your socks off. Because, you know, at least in something like The Gray Man, there was some particularly engaging action sequences, which is why we only really kind of highlighted as one of the worst of the year, but not really pointed out. It's a $150 million movie. But, you know, still, you do expect to walk away with some level of spectacle.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't really have that. It's just another movie where CGI stuff happens in the background. You know, if it wants to be a Mission Impossible film, I mean, I don't even think it's better than the second movie.
Yeah, it's pretty unremarkable.
Yeah, I would.
Another unremarkable movie.
Yeah, it's just, once again, I just wanted to highlight something over there on Netflix's side.
What can I say about my honorable mention here?
In this house. In this house.
So this is Skinamarink.
Yeah. This almost was my number one.
Almost.
I couldn't fucking finish this piece of shit. I could not finish it. It was so boring and so weird. And like, not in a good way weird. It was just like out of focus, blurry footage of random things and places and like just ridiculous.
Skinamarink has a chance to make my top 5 for next week.
Ugh.
I don't believe that it will because we're about to
No,
shotgun like eight movies, 8 Oscar movies, I believe, or Oscar caliber films. And so I think it'll certainly fall out, but I really like this movie. It's something that's very different. It's not a story that's told in any standard style or format. This is a very different kind of movie. It is sort of this VHS nightmare. I think analog horror is the term. And this isn't like the pinnacle of it, I don't believe. But I think this is a great example of it. I think this is a movie about a nightmare that a child has. And I think it's one of the best movies to take place from the POV of like a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old. I think the kids are 4. One of the kids 4, I think the other one's like 6 or 7.
I guess.
I really enjoy, like, I feel like there's scary stuff happening and like these kids are too scared to look at it. And that's like the perspective that we have. And I know there's a huge following for this movie online that looks at it as a story about a kid trapped in a, or dying of a coma. And yeah, you can look at it that way. And I think it's fantastic. I've always talked about this. A movie doesn't have to be literal. And I think this is a movie that is open to interpretation for a lot of audiences for many years. I think this is going to be a cult classic. And I think it's going to be a film that's going to be talked about for a long, long time.
I can't see that.
And you are not wrong. It's divisive. And it was here. I just saw something else in it, and it's why I wanted to show it to you. And I do want to mention, like, you know, before, like, you bowed out before, like, even the shadow monster, like, shows up.
Yeah.
Before even the scene, like, with the parents or anything like that. So you really didn't, I mean, it wasn't like you didn't get the film a chance. I think you waited about 21 minutes where you were like, I can't take any more of this.
Well, that's why I couldn't put it as my number one, because I didn't think that was fair to the movie. But I still really battled that because it was so bad I couldn't finish it.
Yeah, no,
I would have walked out.
Yeah, I like I said, I really love the film. So I don't. It has some problems though, because I mean, it certainly isn't perfect. You know, it does. Well, I mean, you wouldn't know, but it hits its climax and just kind of keeps going. Like the natural end of the film occurs, and they got like 10, 15 more minutes after that that just kind of clank along. That don't really help, even if it does have a particularly creepy conclusion after that. But I still think it's a very unique film. And I think if you are someone who's open to a different kind of narrative in a movie, and maybe somebody watches a lot of YouTube, and I think someone who's interested in movies about nightmares, because that's where this guy got his start. He made a YouTube channel where he made like low budget versions of people's nightmares. And this was the nightmare that people kept writing about over and over again. I'm 5 years old and I'm alone in my house and my parents are gone and there's something in the house with me and the lights don't work. And that's sort of what this movie is. I think it's one of the best examples of a nightmare on screen since Suspiria.
You're fucking insane. I dare anybody to go out there and watch Skinamarink and think to yourself, oh, this is a masterpiece.
I don't know if it's a masterpiece, but I quite like it. I do quite like it.
Well, you're no big old weirdo.
I respect your opinion as well. So are we ready to move on? Are we done talking shit about one another?
Mm-hmm.
Are we done talking about Skinamarink, the best movie of the year? And now we can talk about the worst. I will go first and highlight a movie that we went to go see in the theater and was a waste of time and makes me wonder why Hollywood even bothered to protect Ezra Miller.
Tell me something. You can go anywhere. Another timeline. Another universe. So why do you want to stay and fight to save this one?
Because this is the world where my mom lives. I'm not going to lose her again.
So this is DC's The Flash, which is not the final nail in the coffin of the DC EU or whatever it was. Aquaman just came out, and that's the true finale.
Different people, different worlds.
Yeah.
Drawn to each other like
I wouldn't have put this as my number one, but it is a complete disappointment of a movie, of a big budget action movie. And for the sake of Ezra Miller, for God's sakes, that this is what they put out.
Yeah, this is what they did with it.
Yeah.
They brought Michael Keaton back, for this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a disaster on all fronts. And this really took the place of Ant-Man because we didn't see it. I wanted to highlight this. And we like I said, we went and saw this when it came out. And the audience couldn't have been less enthused from the picture. I guess I should start out by highlighting a few things that I did enjoy in the movie. I think Sasha Calle did a nice job, or Callie.
Yeah, I wish she would play Supergirl.
Yeah. They ended up going with Millie Alcock, even though you have no idea who that is.
No.
Man, it's just a meandering disaster. It's everything that's wrong with where superhero movies went. They're like a few years late on the multiverse bit. And it's multiverse.
Yeah.
So it's, there's this scene near the end of the film where they go into like this multiverse view, right? And they see all these other versions of characters. And we see like Adam West Batman world and different Superman, like Nicolas Cage is that Superman that never happened, that movie from years ago. Like we see all this stuff that like that's the real draw of the movie, right? Like this kind of weird insider nerd stuff, right?
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares?
Right.
Who the fuck cares that Nick Cage almost made a Superman movie 35 years ago? Who gives a shit? Like that is, no one ever wanted that to be referenced or needed it referenced. No one cares that that's there. To bring back Christopher Reeves and Chris Reeves, as sort of AI versions of themselves on these characters, to have it basically not mean anything, just as a cheap cameo. Everything about this movie is a waste.
It's hollow.
Yeah, what they want to achieve is something they couldn't hope to get at. There's no nostalgia in a movie so soulless. And that is truly what this is. And this is given to us by the guys who did It. And so I was supremely disappointed when I found that aspect out when I left the theater. Because it's also one of those movies to where, I think you just heard in the trailer, they talk about the mother's death, right?
Yeah.
Who killed the mother?
I know she was killed in a grocery store.
No, she's killed at home.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, their interaction takes place in the grocery store.
Oh, shit.
That shows how much you pay attention. We never find out who killed the mother.
Yeah.
It's just a plot point that's sort of glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the crux of the whole movie is he tries to go back and save his mom, but they don't take the time to solve the murder. I guess they were saving that for the sequel that they're never going to get. But like, even if they were saving that for a later movie, like that shows the problem, right? Later movie, what fucking later movie? You're not going to get a later movie. You're not going to get a sequel. Just because Marvel is going to get infinite sequels doesn't mean the DCEU gets that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like even having that kind of mindset is the problem with this movie. And it all came to a head on this one, and it got people fired over in Warner Brothers. And this is what brought in James Gunn. So that's a good thing that they're going to reboot it. I feel bad that he's taking over when I think the superhero fatigue could be taking hold, especially if some more movies miss. And, we didn't even see the Marvels, and that could have easily been here as well. I know that wasn't as well liked, but it was also a terrible failure. This was truly subpar cinema.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put it as my worst movie of the year, but that, to each his own.
Yeah.
My worst movie of the year, speaking of soulless.
Ezra! Hey, what are you up to these days? Got a girlfriend?
No.
But you don't like getting pussy?
Okay. Hearing the word pussy come out of your mouth does make me question whether or not I like it.
Back again up in this mother town.
I'm never gonna meet a woman who understands me.
This is a strange movie.
It starts off all right.
This is a strange movie. Yeah, I think the first 10 to 15 minutes of this, I was kind of like, this isn't so bad.
Yeah.
This isn't so bad at all.
Then it falls off a fucking cliff.
And I think that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Because it goes from just maybe not even
But you're not getting 5
giggle-worthy comedy, but maybe smirk-worthy. I think there were a couple jokes I might have expelled wind from my nose in a rapid manner.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been the best that could have achieved. And then it goes into this level of cringe comedy about racism that feels dated and offensive, yet toothless at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't understand how it could be so superficial, yet oddly enough, so inappropriate.
Yeah.
If it had edge, I think some of these things could be kind of all right, but there's no edge to this movie at all.
It's just mean.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Zoolander 2.
Yeah.
It's just a complete devoid of humor, life, soul, comedy, anything. It's it's also very mean. It's also a very mean movie.
Yeah, I did find it to be a mean-spirited film.
Eddie Murphy is not even charming.
Yeah, and this is something Eddie Murphy kind of does every now and then, where he shows up and plays an asshole, which he's not very good at.
Yeah.
Because I think if you want, there's a way to be a charming asshole. I talked about Meet the Parents, which is a movie this film would love to be. Meet the Parents about race, but it's not that at all.
They could have done so much with it.
Yeah.
That could have been way funnier.
Yeah.
And less cliche.
I didn't put it there because I did find a couple of gags that I did enjoy earlier in the movie. And I did enjoy the cocaine joke in the middle of the movie because it was so over the top. I think I smirked at that one.
I didn't laugh.
Yeah.
Smile.
And that
throughout the whole movie.
No, I think that was about the only thing I was like, okay, well, that's kind of funny. And so therefore, if I was going to highlight a comedy today, I definitely wanted to talk about Fool's Paradise. I almost said Fool's Gold.
Another shitty.
Yeah.
Romantic comedy.
Yeah. Fool's Paradise. I wanted to highlight that film and its awfulness. Do you think about the films that you want to highlight? And I think that's kind of what the whole endeavor is of this project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like, I have to flash where it is because, like, it's one of the movies I want to talk about and go out on, you know. And I think the same way you felt about You People.
Yeah.
I think you disliked it a little bit more than I did, but I was not enamored with it. If we went to 10, this would be like 6 or 7.
This would be a 0 for me.
Yeah, this would easily be on my list. I just don't hate it as much as you hate it.
Yeah.
You know, so it barely missed out on making the list because I wanted to highlight The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Blame The Flash.
Yeah.
Ezra Miller ruined everything.
Blame Ezra Miller.
Yeah, what a jerk.
Yeah.
Somebody kicked that. Someone punt that guy into the sun.
What an ass clown.
I know. So once again, we didn't do our social media intros at the start of the show.
Oh shit, we didn't.
Yeah, we barely introduced ourselves. We just ran right into this show because we were so excited to talk about these
really bad movies. Yeah. You were especially excited. You were very.
I wanted to get into it. I wanted to get into it. But yes, if you'd like to reach us on social media, what's that email address, Meredith?
GrittyRebootcast@gmail.com.
That's right. And what can they search for on Instagram and on TikTok to find us?
I can't remember.
It's the name of the show.
You're a better pitch man.
I like that. I throw you the 2 easiest tosses and you're like, I don't know. It's search Gritty Reboot at Instagram and TikTok to find out more about the show where hosts sometimes forget the name of the show.
That's me.
Well, this is what happens at the end of the show. No one hangs around at this point anyway. So, yeah, if you are, thank you once again, and please rate 5 stars. If you've happened to have fallen asleep, please stay asleep and enjoy these nice tones as we say goodbye.
Dulcet tones of your podcasting host.
That's right. Have a good sleep, and if you're still awake, I'm very sorry. For this outro, which makes no sense if you're awake, but enjoy your slumber and our laughter and our outro music. Goodbye, folks, and we'll see you for the best of next week. Oh shit, I forgot to press record.